This video is about data casting, which is basically being able to change data types from one data type to another, or data from one data type to another. So if we think about data, we basically have three different types of data that we are going to use in Python. There are a few more, but for the most part, we're going to stick with these three. So you have string data, which is data that you cannot do math on. It can appear as numbers or letters, but you can't perform math on it. So if we look at variable 1 here, our variable 1 is equal to the string of 10. We can tell it's a string because it's got quotes around it. Variable 2 is equal to the second type of data, which is integer data, whole numbers, either positive or negative. So the third type of data I can name that one 4, would be what we call float data, because it has a floating point, which in math you always called a decimal point. So a floating point and decimal point are interchangeable. So floating point data, float data, and variable data are data that we can do math on. String data is data that we cannot do math on. So if we look at our equation here for variable 3, we're going to add variable 1, which is the string of 10, and variable 2, which is the integer of 10. When we run this, we come up with an error. And basically the error is saying you can't add string data and integer data. So what we can do is something called data casting. So we want an integer of 10 from this. So we can perform the int function on variable 1's data. When we run this, oops, we also have to print it. Actually, let's just do and then I have to spell print right. So the print of int variable 1, int variable 1 changes this to from a string to a 10, just an integer of 10, and variable 2 already is an integer of 10, so 10 plus 10 is 20, and then we're just printing it to the screen as 20. So the other type of data casting that we can get here is, let's do a float, and let's make this variable 4, and run the module, and we get 20.1 because we added a float to a float. So this basically what this does, when we do a float on 10, we get 10.0, and we can change this back to variable 2 and run this again, and notice that we get 20.0 because we've added an integer to a float, and anytime you do that, you're going to end up with a float. And that is the basics of data casting, which is changing data from one type to another. The one thing that you do have to worry about is if I were try to do a data cast of data that cannot be changed, I get an error because there's no way to convert Bob to a number. So that's basically what that's telling us, is you cannot convert that string to a float because it doesn't have numbers in it.